Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Cult de Sac, Benedict Canyon. Now, I'm a believer in just calling things what they are, and in order to be assigned housing, even for overnight stays, you must be a member of a cult. You've got to be a member of a clandestine service cult in order to get free housing, whether it's long-term, short-term, or just overnight. You've got to be a member of a cult. Now, in Hollywood, the typical cult that everybody belongs to is called the Screen Actors Guild. The CIA refers to that as SAG, acronym SAG, Screen Actors Guild, formerly known as the Maskers Club, where people wear a mask and they conceal their true identity. That's what an actor does. They portray a character that is different than themselves. In other words, they're liars. They're professional liars. That's what an actor is. That's what members of the Screen Actors Guild aspire to be. Now, I realize there's members of the Screen Actors Guild perhaps that work in off-screen capacity. Nevertheless, they're on a mission to punk America with anthropology, social engineering, fake messaging to herd the belief system of the people of the United States, which is neither united nor does it exist is the form that you were taught in school. There's 12 banking districts. It operates under maritime law. The banks fund their anthropology by a credit social score system. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. There's nothing new under the sun. All right. I wanted to state up front that I am aware in my studies of Beverly Hills, zip code 90210, both on the flats and in Holmby Hills and in Benedict Canyon, that there have been military assassinations that occurred in homes which were not technically on a cul-de-sac or a cul-de-sac. And so I'll give you some examples. Bugsy Seigel was shot 9 times by a military Army issue M1 carbine semi-automatic rifle. He was shot 4 times to his head, 5 times to his body at 810 Linden Drive, which is near the Los Angeles Country Club. It's about 2 blocks away, and it is 3 houses up the street from where Howard Hughes crashed his United States Army spy plane into 2 homes, destroying them on Linden Drive. And that the airplane crash, which involved clandestine service OSS Howard Hughes, military contractor, crashing onto Linden Drive, that was in 1945 after the Germany had surrendered, but we hadn't wrapped up operations in Japan yet. So Japan had not technically surrendered. So World War II was almost but not quite over when Howard Hughes crashed his experimental spy plane, into Linden Drive, 3 houses to the south of where Bugsy Siegel was assassinated in 1947, 2 years later. All right? So again, the home at 810 Linden Drive is not on a cul-de-sac, but you should know, people, that there's a rear entrance to these properties, for where the garbage collector picks up the trash cans and the gardener brings their tools or stores them in your garage, is in the back. And it's not a cul-de-sac, but it does offer clandestine service, entry, and access to the property where the people on the sidewalks wouldn't notice the comings and goings on your military control property. Another example is the Jose and Kitty Menedez assassination, which occurred at around 10 p.m. at night, August 20th, 1989, on 722 North Elm Drive in Beverly Hills. It's not a cul-de-sac. However, just like I told you, there's rear entrance and exit access. It backs up to garages in the back and a in-law unit attached to the garage, and it's adjacent to a tennis court and a swimming pool, and the property can be accessed without anyone on Elm Drive noticing. This is true in pretty much every example. So I've got the Menedez murder was a military form of murder. When you shoot people in their kneecaps, that's professional. When you don't leave any cartridges behind at the crime scene, that's professional. Okay? And last I checked, an 18-year-old tennis player, Eric Menedez, and his older brother wearing a toupee, Lyle, who's a Princeton student, Princeton University, they're not professional killers, all right? And I don't think they'd know about the collecting the cartridges or shooting the victims in the knee and blowing their face off their head. I don't think that that's something that the Sons could do. That's me, okay? Now, is the Menendez family a dysfunctional family? Absolutely, yes it is. Absolutely. Does that make them professional killers? No, it doesn't. Professional killers have to practice, rehearse, and you just don't show up at someone's house with shotguns and start blowing up the furniture, okay? And you don't go onto properties with M7 bayonets unless you've practiced with an M16 rifle with an M7 bayonet attachment. If you're a NATO, Gladio, Black Ops soldier, you practice. You do drills and repetitive drills. So it all becomes very routine. All right, so anyway, I've got the Menendez murders, not on a cul-de-sac. I've got the Bugsy Seagill murders in 1947, not on a cul-de-sac. I've got before that, I had Thomas Ince, who's personal friends with both Mary and Davies, who he's having an affair with, despite the fact that she's dating married man William Randolph Hearst. He's married. But he has a 35-year relationship with Marion Davies, not his wife. And she's having an affair with another married man, Thomas Ince, who resides at 1051 Benedict Canyon Drive, below the Sharon Tate murder scene. And he is found dead at that address on Benedict Canyon Drive in 1924. All right? And that's not a cul-de-sac. That's Benedict Canyon Drive that goes from Sunset Boulevard all the way up to Mulholland Drive, where Warren Beatty lived and where Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando resided, close to where Benedict Canyon Drive punches out at the top of the ridgeline known as Mulholland Drive. It's also known as the ridgeline for the Santa Monica Mountains. That's what that is. That's a Santa Monica mountain range. Kind of runs east to west, west to east. And atop it is Mulholland Drive, named after William Mulholland, the man who brought water to Los Angeles. Anyway, and we should also know that Tony Scott, the younger brother of Sir Ridley Scott, Tony Scott, who was a director, producer in Hollywood, he was murder-suicided by being tossed off the Vincent Thomas Bridge in San Pedro, but he resided at 1500 Seabright Place, which is a cul-de-sac just across from the Doris Duke property known as Falcon's Lair, which had been the Rudy Valentino home before it was the Doris Duke home, and it is a baseball throw away from where Tony Scott was residing when he was murdered. But he wasn't murdered on the cul-de-sac. He was murdered in the port of Los Angeles in a port facility off the Vincent Thomas Bridge, whilst he lived in Benedict Canyon at Seabright Place, which is a cul-de-sac. It is directly another baseball throw away from where Elizabeth Montgomery resided, the star of Bewitched, the Good Witch. She lived at Benedict Canyon Drive cul-de-sac off Benedict Canyon Drive, the drive. So I've got Elizabeth Montgomery, who was found dead in her bed from colon cancer, allegedly, at age 62. Then I've got Tony Scott, brother of Sir Ridley Scott, and he's dead whilst living at 1500 Seabright Place, a cul-de-sac. Then I've got Doris Duke, who's residing at 1436 Bella Drive, which is a cul-de-sac, if you didn't know. And those three people live one baseball throw away from each other. All three living on cul-de-sacs. But as far as I know, only Elizabeth Taylor died on her cul-de-sac. I don't know where Doris Duke died. She may have died at Bella. I think she was either in the hospital or she died at home at 1436 Bella Drive. You can Google it. That's the Sharon Tate murder scene road, in case you didn't know, okay? Because they're trying to fake you out by saying it's at Cielo. But it's at the merging of three cul-de-sacs. Sharon Tate was murdered at the confluence of Sunbrook Drive, Angelo View Drive, and Bella Drive. You take the dead ends of those three cul-de-sacs, that's where Abigail Folger and Wojtek Frykowski and Sharon Tate and Tom Coomer, Jay Sebring, and Stephen Parent were murdered, where three cul-de-sacs merge at a 24/7 surveilled crime scene used for pornography films, cocktail parties, and God knows what other things went on there, because it was an amphitheater chamber and you could have had human sacrifices or animal sacrifices in that property. No one's going to know, right? It's completely invisible to the public unless you have a telescope and you look in there, which I believe the military does have that type of technology. Anyway, I'm bringing this up because I want you to really understand that Benedict Canyon as a whole is a military cul-de-sac colony. Down the hill, the biggest home was Walt Disney's mansion. That's at 354 Carrollwood Drive. That's not a cul-de-sac, but his home was 35,000 square feet, and he had an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and he had his own railroad train tracks and engineering yard, train yard, maintenance yard. He named his engine after his older brother, Roy, 9 years older, who ran the Disney Corporation, was run by Roy Disney. The engine that could. Because Walt's the artistic side. He doesn't know business. It was Roy Disney who was the brains to Disney. And he lived in Toluca Lake, which is kind of a cul-de-sac of its own, in Burbank. Toluca Lake. It's at the bottom of Laurel Canyon on the north side of Laurel Canyon. Just below where William Shatner's third wife was murdered, just below where George Harrison died, is Toluca Lake. It's a gated community. In other words, there's only one way in and out, okay? It's like a cul-de-sac. That's what a cul-de-sac is. There's only one way in and out. All right, so what I wanted to tell you is that down the hill, adjacent to Walt Disney's ginormous mansion on 5 acres of property, which is the exact amount of acres that the Playboy Club had. It's just 5 acres. It's not that grandiose. And the Playboy Mansion is walking distance away. It's just on the southern side of Sunset Boulevard. This is all Holmby Hills. I'm describing Holmby Hills in Benedict Canyon. It spills over into Benedict Canyon. But the road that's in particular focus today is North Roxbury Drive. North Roxbury Drive was home to Lucille Ball, Jack Benny, Peter Falk, Jimmy Stewart, Rosemary Clooney, and her husband Jose Ferrar, and they moved in to the home that had been previously occupied by George and Ira Gershwin. You remember those Jewish songwriters? They wrote, "They can't take that away from me, and our love is here to stay." Those are Gershwin classics. Anyway, they lived at 1019 North Roxbury Drive before Rosemary Clooney did. And her nephew, George Clooney, lived there too. He lived there for a short while. George Clooney, you might have heard of him. Michael Clayton. It's my favorite George Clooney film. It's about a corrupt pharmaceutical company who murders a whistleblowing attorney. I mean, what's better than having an attorney murdered, okay, who is actually going to blow a whistle on a pharmaceutical company? I mean, that's a highlight for me. And George Clooney was the star of that film. Michael Clayton. I think it's repeated twice. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you is that all of these actors, Agnes Moorehead, who moved into Spencer Tracy's home, 11,700 square foot home that Spencer Tracy lived in before Agnes Moorehead moved in. Agnes Moorehead is the bad witch. She's in Dora. She's the mother-in-law for Darren Stevens, She's the mother of Samantha Stevens, Elizabeth Montgomery, who plays the Samantha Stevens, the Good Witch. And her mother is Agnes Moorehead and Dora. And Dora lives at 1023 North Roxbury Drive. And you know that Agnes Moorehead was required to go to the fake wedding reception cocktail party in London for Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate. There are photographs of Agnes Moorehead sipping champagne at a 4 o'clock p.m. to 6 p.m. cocktail party at the Playboy Club across the street from Green Park, next door to the Grand Sheraton Hotel in London, in central London. There's Agnes Moorehead pretending to be a wedding guest for Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski, who she has, I think, no relationship with either of them whatsoever. But she's part of the furniture. She's an actor in Hollywood, so she's required to go. Just like some of the cast members from Valley of the Dolls. They also were flown over to London for this fake wedding that never happened. There was never any wedding ceremony. There is no wedding paperwork. There are no witnesses that saw any wedding. They just went over to the Chelsea registry and supposedly picked up some papers. Never saw the papers. Then there's a photo op as they come down the stairs. Then they're limousine driven about a mile away over to the Playboy Club, where they have this cocktail party on a Friday. It's a Friday afternoon workday. So this wedding is not happening on a Saturday. It's a Friday afternoon workday. And there's just BBC, British actors, and Hollywood actresses like Agnes Moorehead, who lives exactly 1.4 miles away from where Sharon Tate was murdered, essentially 18 months after this cocktail party. Sharon Tate is murdered up the hill from Agnes Moorehead. Now, as the crow flies, Agnes Moorehead actually lives under a mile from where Sharon Tate was murdered. It's just you have to appreciate that the roads are so curvaceous that they add distance, okay? Because from Sunbrook Drive, which is the quickest cul-de-sac to the murder scene, to Agnes Moorehead's house, it's 1.4 miles. But Angelo Drive is very windy, as is Carrollwood Drive. And if you straightened out that distance like the crow could fly, I'd say you're down to 1,000 meters distance, which is 2/3 of a mile away. It's like half the distance of what Google Maps will tell you. It's about half as much as Google Maps will tell you. You should know that the Doris Duke home, which was Rudy Valentino's house before hers, it's about 250 yards from the front gate at Cielo Drive murder scene, okay, which is not far. It's just right over Cielo Drive as the crow flies. As Google Maps tells you, it's 4/10 of a mile, but that's because Google Maps has you going north, making a U-turn, coming south. But if you went as the crow flies, about 250 meters, and you can see right onto the property from 1436 Bella Drive, Doris Duke. And she was an occupant of that residence in August 1969. All right? You should know that Doris Duke's home is walking distance. It's another baseball throw away from where Peter Fox Colombo in 1975 mocked us by doing an episode entitled Identity Crisis, where Patrick McGowan played the CI operative Nelson Brenner, who resided on the Enchanted Hillside above the Sharon Tate murder scene. Well, I have the address if you want to Google it. It's 1431 Davies Drive. It's the second to last house at the cul-de-sac of Marion Davies Drive, known as Davies Drive. That is a baseball throw away from Doris Duke's house, which is on a different street. She's on the Bella Drive cul-de-sac, and the CIA fake house, 1431 Davies Drive, is just separated by a little bit of undeveloped land. And again, as the crow flies to the Sharon Tate murder scene, it's less than half a mile away distance. I would say that's around a kilometer or less. It's closer than Agnes Moorehead. All right. So what I wanted to tell you is that Doris Duke And the house that was featured in the Columbo episode where the CI director, played by David White, Larry Tate from Bewitched, that's really close to the Sharon Tate murder scene. Really close. All right, so addresses that I just want you to know that they had a cluster of people that were living on North Roxbury Drive, and that's not a cul-de-sac. And that's the who's who of Hollywood, and I've mentioned many of their names. Rosemary Clooney, Madonna, Sonny Bono, Kirk Kerkorian, who signed Elvis Presley to his contract at the Las Vegas Hilton Hotel. Kirk Kerkorian owned that hotel, and he signed Elvis to basically a lifetime contract when he duped the Colonel into $1 million worth of gambling losses. Jennifer Lopez was assigned that house. So look at all the people that lived at 1014 North Roxbury Drive. Sonny Bono, Kirk Kerkorian, Jennifer Lopez. They all lived in the same house. Then we had 1006 Hartford Drive. Jack Palance lived there. Then we had Rosemary Clooney living in the home that was occupied previously by George Gershwin and Ira Gershwin. When George died, Ira moved next door to 1021, becoming neighbors with Rosemary Clooney and Jose Ferrer. And then we had 1015 Roxbury Drive. This home was occupied by Jewish Hollywood producer Harry Cohen, Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, and then Madonna moved in after Diane Keaton lived there at 1015 Roxbury. After Madonna moved out, David Beckman and his wife, he's the soccer player, David Beckman, he moved in there. See, that's a CIA clandestine service provisional home. I mean, Harry Cohen, Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, Diane Keaton, Madonna, David Beckman. That's 6 different celebrities living in the same house. 1015 North Roxbury Drive. All right, so let's talk a little bit about cul-de-sacs, because if you're going to have military assassinations, there's just nothing better to do it on a cul-de-sac where you will never get caught. And you own and control all the homes on the cul-de-sac. So you can use the showers and the swimming pools to clean up. You can rehearse the murder in advance in the backyards of these homes. And it is easy peasy, especially when you have doppelganger twin homes like Sharon Tate's home where she was killed. There's a duplication of that exact house 150 feet down the hill at 10048 Cielo Drive, which is on a cul-de-sac below the Sharon Tate cul-de-sac, which is Bella Drive that they want you to think is Cielo Drive. But essentially you have the duplication of that love house. I would call it the satanic evil doppelganger twin house. But the most chilling addresses that you should know are above the Sharon Tate murder house. You have 10101, 10102, 10103, which has been turned into a super mansion. That is Angelo View Drive. Angelo View Drive. 10101, 10102, 10103 are directly above where Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger were murdered. And there were 3 houses up there at that time. It's being turned into one ginormous house. Then to the west of the murder scene for Sharon Tate, we have Sunbrook Drive, which I believe was the primary staging area for the NATO soldiers. Over there we have similar addresses. We have 10100 Sunbrook Drive. We have 10101 Sunbrook Drive. We have 10106 Sunbrook Drive assigned to Timothy Leary. Timothy Leary, friend of Oliver Silverstein Stone, who visited that property. Then we have 1212 Angelo Drive, which is on Sunbrook Drive and shares the same exact driveway as 10101 Sunbrook Drive. In case you didn't know, that is just below the pool house where Abigail Folger was murdered, next to that pool house. And there is an established trail and a gate that goes onto that property from 10101. Sunbrook Drive is a part of the murder property, essentially. To me, I look at it as it's the same property because they're all bulldozed at the same time. The doppelganger twin home was bulldozed over to Sunbrook Drive. The Bella Drive was bulldozed over to 10101 Sunbrook Drive with an embankment and a little path and a gate. So you have access. There's at least a minimum of 6 entry and exit points to the murder scene from the 3 cul-de-sacs. 3 cul-de-sacs being Sunbrook Drive, Angelo View Drive, and Bella Drive. Now, if you throw in the 10048 Cielo Drive, there's actually a 4th entry and exit place. It's a little bit of a goat trail. It's the most challenging, but there are established goat trails on that steep hillside. Then across the street on Cielo Drive, we have, of course, the Doris Duke house, which is a surveillance house for this property. Below that, we have what I call the invisible house. That's 10060 Cielo Drive, which is on the side of the road where they're all odd number addresses on Cielo Drive, but this one house is 10060 Cielo Drive, but you can't access it from Cielo Drive. You can only access it from Bella Drive, even though it doesn't have a Bella Drive address. It's total CIA hiding in plain view. You know that the UPS people must understand all this, right? It's only accessible from the Doris Duke secondary driveway. She has 3 driveways. She has a driveway that separates her from the Sharon Tate murder. She has her own driveway to park her car. Then on the other side of the house to the east, she has a driveway that takes you to the invisible house, 10060 Cielo Drive. Then she's a baseball throw away from the Enchanted Hillside house, 1431 Davies Drive, which is a baseball throw away from where George Reeves, Superman, was suicide murdered with 4 shots, 1 to his head, 4 shots from a pistol. Took him 4 shots to commit suicide. And that is 2 houses away from where Susan Berman was execution-style murdered on her knees on Benedict Canyon Drive. A baseball throw away from Doris Duke's home. A baseball throw away from the Enchanted Hillside house featured in Colombo. And very close proximity to the Tony Scott Seabright Place cul-de-sac. Anyway, that should give you something to chew on, is that we have over a dozen suspicious homes that are on Davies Drive, Bella Drive, Angelo View Drive, Sunbrook Drive, with an address called Angelo Drive on Sunbrook Drive, and then 2 homes on Cielo Drive, 10048 Cielo Drive, and 10060 Cielo Drive, accessible by Bella Drive. Anyway, you add up all those homes, and then the next door neighbors, which I believe are part of the program. You know, we're talking about dozens of homes in this sector, and we know that there are murders galore. We have Jean Harlow's husband murdered in this sector, this kill box. We have Superman George Reed killed in this kill box. We have Susan Berman killed in the kill box. We have the 5 people with the Sharon Tate murder. That's 8. We have Thomas Ince just below the murder scene. That's 9. Okay. We got Tony Scott. That's 10. Then if you want to cross over Sunset Boulevard, you got Ben Seigel. That's 11. Then you got Kitty and Lyle Menedez, or Kitty and Jose Menedez. That's 13. That's lucky 13. So I'm leaving out some other murders. You should know that Ronald Reagan was on a cul-de-sac. He lived at 666 St. Cloud Road. That is in close proximity to the Westlake, Harvard Westlake Indoctrination Center for Children. That's just below the Beverly Hills mansion where Rupert Murdoch's son, Lachlan Murdoch, now resides at 750 Bel Air Road. He's in the news. Above him is Zsa Zsa Gabor, Julio Iglesias, and Art Linkletter are all on Bel Air Road, which all those homes look into the Sharon Tate murder scene. All right, did you get it? So that's in Bel Air, but it's in very close proximity to the kill box known as the cul-de-sacs of Benedict Canyon. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.